2025's housing market isn't just cooling. It's cracking wide open, and some cities are in real danger of collapse. Remember the chaos of 2008? This might be even worse. What's pushing prices off a cliff? Why are some homeowners paying $10,000 a year in insurance? And which cities are at the tipping point where homes are sitting empty, foreclosures are spiking, and buyers have vanished? From flashy metros to quiet suburbs, these places are flashing red warning signs. In this video, we're diving into 10 US cities where the housing market is cracking wide open in 2025. Number 10. Miami, Florida. Miami might still look like a tropical dream with its pastel Art Deco buildings and palm-lined beaches. But behind that glossy postcard is a city dancing on the edge of a housing meltdown. In 2025, this glitzy paradise is becoming one of the riskiest housing markets in the country. Why? Because the very things that make Miami glamorous, waterfront views, international appeal, and luxury living, are now becoming its biggest liabilities. The city has seen home prices explode by nearly 70% since 2020, but wages haven't come close to keeping up. As of early 2025, the median home price is hovering around $610,000, while the median household income is barely $56,000. That's a mind-blowing 11x income-to-home price ratio, one of the worst in the US. Now toss in rising insurance premiums because Miami is ground zero for climate risk. Flood zones are expanding, hurricanes are intensifying, and property insurance has become an absolute nightmare. Some homeowners saw their premiums double in just 12 months, with average rates now pushing $8,000 per year. Ouch! And that's if they can even find coverage. Many insurers have fled the Florida market entirely. People are walking away from mortgages they can no longer afford, and investor interest is cooling fast. Home inventory in Miami surged 42% year over year, and new listings are staying on the market longer, some sitting unsold for over 90 days. What's worse, foreign investors who once bought up Miami condos like candy are slowing down. Latin American economies are struggling, Chinese investment has shrunk, and with higher US interest rates, Miami's appeal as a real estate playground is fading. Rental vacancies are also ticking up in luxury buildings, pushing prices down. Miami's housing market, once red hot, is freezing over. Some experts predict a price correction of 15 to 20% by the end of the year, and if interest rates remain above 6.5%, the pain could spread fast. Miami's housing bubble isn't just inflated, it's being held together by duct tape and tropical optimism. If the pressure keeps mounting, the collapse won't be subtle. It'll be flashy, chaotic, and, just like Miami, impossible to ignore. Number 9. Detroit, Michigan. Detroit is a city that knows how to fall and rise again, but 2025 is testing its limits. After a decade of gritty resilience and downtown revitalization, cracks are once again showing in the housing foundation. The Motor City saw impressive growth from 2012 to 2022, but now the brakes are screeching. The median home price in Detroit has jumped to $83,000, which might sound low, but that's up more than 90% from just 5 years ago. Combine that with rising mortgage rates and a city where over 30% of the population lives below the poverty line, and affordability starts looking like a distant dream. Detroit's housing crisis isn't just about prices, it's about infrastructure. Thousands of homes remain abandoned, many in need of demolition, and the city's aging water systems and utilities are pushing maintenance costs through the roof. Add in a property tax delinquency rate hovering around 15%, and you've got a volatile market with weakened homeowner equity. Many families are house rich, cash poor, sitting on properties they can't afford to fix, insure, or even heat properly. Unemployment is another looming factor. Detroit's job market is tied closely to manufacturing, and the recent downturn in auto production due to supply chain disruptions and EV transitions has caused layoffs. The city's unemployment rate, currently around 7.9%, is one of the highest among large US metros. That translates to missed mortgage payments, rising defaults, and growing inventory. In fact, Detroit saw a 35% increase in homes listed for sale compared to last year, and many are sitting unsold for months. With population decline still a long-term trend, Detroit has lost over 1.2 million residents since 1950, and urban sprawl causing maintenance nightmares, experts are warning of a market stall or worse. Some projections estimate home values in certain Detroit neighborhoods could drop 10 to 15% by early 2026. If the economic headwinds persist, Detroit may not face a 2008-style crash, but it's likely to experience a long, painful deflation. Detroit's grit is legendary, but in 2025, it may not be enough to stop another housing market slump from shaking the city to its core. Number 8. Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas knows how to gamble, but its housing market in 2025 is flirting with bust territory. After a massive run-up during the pandemic, when Californians and remote workers flooded into Clark County, prices have started to wobble. The median home price in Las Vegas peaked at $450,000, up from $285,000 in 2019, a staggering 58% increase in just 5 years. But now, with rising interest rates and fewer out-of-state buyers, the high-stakes game is cooling fast. In early 2025, listings have surged by 33%, and price cuts are becoming common. Over 40% of homes on the market have seen reductions. Even worse? Investors, who once scooped up nearly 1 in every 4 homes, are pulling back hard. With rents flattening and home appreciation stalled, the math no longer makes sense for big landlords. Vacancy rates have risen to 6.2%, and that's hitting the bottom line. The affordability squeeze is also real. The median household income in Vegas is around $64,000, but with mortgage rates north of 6.5%, monthly payments on the average home now exceed $2,500. That's a stretch for many residents, especially those in service, tourism, or hospitality jobs still recovering post-COVID. Job growth has slowed, and while the Strip is bustling, it's not booming like it was in 2022. Then there's the climate crisis. Vegas is in the crosshairs of water shortages, record-breaking heat, and sustainability concerns. Lake Mead is still dangerously low, and long-term fears about livability are influencing buyer behavior. Some Californians are now bypassing Vegas altogether, heading to Idaho or the Carolinas. Foreclosure activity is also ticking up 18% year over year, especially among first-time buyers who purchased during the market peak with minimal down payments. Combine that with high HOA fees and maintenance costs in many Vegas developments, and some homeowners are starting to bail out. In short, Vegas is showing signs of a housing hangover. The party isn't over yet, but the music's getting quiet. And if the economy keeps tightening, Sin City could roll into a painful correction. Number 7. Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix was the poster child of America's housing boom during the pandemic. Thousands relocated here for sunshine, space, and affordability, or so they thought. In 2025, the desert dream is starting to crack. Phoenix home prices surged a mind-blowing 70% from 2019 to 2022, peaking around $470,000. But now, the median price has dropped to $420,000, and analysts are warning it could slide another 10 to 15% by year's end. Inventory is flooding the market. Active listings in the Phoenix metro area jumped 45% year over year, and the average time on market has doubled to nearly 60 days. Part of the problem? Affordability. The median household income in Phoenix is about $72,000, but with mortgage rates above 6.7%, many families are priced out. Monthly payments for a typical home have ballooned past $2,800, which is a huge ask when inflation is still nibbling away at every budget. Phoenix was also one of the hottest investor markets. At one point, 30% of all homes were bought by investors. But that gold rush has ended. Institutional buyers are pulling back, and Airbnb demand is fading thanks to new regulations and oversaturation. The result? A glut of short-term rentals being dumped onto the market. Then comes the climate stress. Phoenix recorded over 50 days above 110 degrees Fahrenheit in 2024, and the city's infrastructure is straining to keep up. High energy bills, heat-related health concerns, and water scarcity from the shrinking Colorado River are pushing some residents to reconsider long-term plans. Foreclosures are up too. 21% year over year, especially among recent buyers who overpaid in bidding wars. Meanwhile, construction hasn't slowed enough. Thousands of new builds are still hitting the market, driving competition even further. This oversupply, mixed with declining demand, spells trouble. Phoenix is resilient, sure, but in 2025, it's walking a razor's edge between correction and collapse. If interest rates stay high and climate risks grow, the Valley of the Sun might find itself in the shadow of a serious housing downturn. Number 6. Tampa, Florida. Tampa was one of the darlings of the Sun Belt boom during the pandemic. Affordable, sunny, and super attractive for remote workers and retirees. But in 2025, the glow is starting to fade, and Tampa's housing market is showing signs of stress. The median home price shot up from around $248,000 in 2019 to $430,000 in 2022. That's a staggering 73% jump in just 3 years. But now, the market's cooling. Prices are slipping by 7 to 10% in many neighborhoods, and some zip codes are seeing listings pile up without offers. What's behind the slide? Well, for starters, Tampa's inventory is climbing, up 38% year over year, as more sellers try to cash out before the market shifts further. But buyers are holding back. Why? Because mortgage rates around 6.8% make monthly payments unaffordable for many locals. With a median household income of just $62,000, a typical mortgage now eats up more than 45% of the average family's income. That's a huge red flag for market stability. Then there's the insurance crisis. Tampa, like much of coastal Florida, has been hit hard by skyrocketing homeowners insurance. Premiums are now averaging over $6,000 per year, and in flood-prone zones, it's much worse. Some insurers have pulled out entirely, leaving homeowners with limited and expensive options. For many, owning a home in Tampa just doesn't pencil out anymore. And let's not forget about job trends. Tampa's economy relies heavily on tourism, healthcare, and construction, all sectors vulnerable to recessionary winds. Layoffs in hospitality and construction are ticking up, and many buyers are pausing big financial decisions. Investors, too, are exiting. Tampa was a hotspot for rental and Airbnb investments, but rising costs and tighter local regulations have dampened returns. Some large investment firms are quietly offloading properties, adding to the downward pressure on prices. Tampa isn't crashing just yet, but the warning lights are blinking. If inflation persists, rates stay high, and insurance chaos continues, Tampa could go from booming to breaking. The sun may still shine on this Gulf Coast gem, but the foundation under its housing market is looking shaky. Number 5. Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta's been a magnet for newcomers, but in 2025, the city's red-hot housing market is cooling fast. Between 2020 and 2022, Atlanta saw one of the nation's sharpest price increases, with median home values jumping from $260,000 to over $420,000, a jaw-dropping 61% gain. But now, with mortgage rates hovering around 7%, those gains are turning into losses. Inventory is up 34% year over year, and homes are lingering on the market longer, especially in once hot suburban areas like Marietta, Alpharetta, and Decatur. Affordability has become a serious issue. Atlanta's median household income sits around $71,000, but mortgage payments on the average home now exceed $2,800 a month, not including insurance and taxes. That's pushing many first-time buyers out of the game. Add in property tax hikes across Fulton and DeKalb counties, and the cost of living is no longer the bargain it once was. What's worse? Atlanta was flooded with investors during the pandemic. At one point, over 25% of home purchases were by institutional buyers. Now, many of those rental properties are being dumped back onto the market as the Airbnb gold rush fades and profit margins shrink. Vacancy rates are up, especially in high-density developments and newly built subdivisions. Atlanta's economy is also facing headwinds. While still diverse, tech layoffs and a slowing film industry are making headlines. Meanwhile, traffic, infrastructure strain, and rising crime in some areas are making parts of the city less desirable, further complicating the housing situation. Foreclosures are also creeping back, They're up 22% from 2024, with many hitting lower-income neighborhoods that were hit hardest by inflation and job loss. And let's not forget that Atlanta was one of the hardest-hit cities during the 2008 housing crash. The scars are still there, and some fear history may be repeating. Atlanta's real estate market isn't in full collapse yet, but it's wobbling. If economic uncertainty deepens and interest rates don't budge, this southern powerhouse could face a painful reset. Number 4. Deltona, Florida. Deltona might not make national headlines like Miami or Orlando, but this central Florida city is quietly emerging as one of the most vulnerable housing markets of 2025. Situated between Daytona Beach and Orlando, Deltona exploded during the pandemic as remote workers fled big cities for affordable suburban life. The median home price surged from just $210,000 in 2019 to $370,000 by 2022, a stunning 76% increase. But now, the boom has stalled, and signs of trouble are everywhere. One big issue: job access. Deltona is largely a commuter town, with most residents traveling to Orlando or Daytona for work. As gas prices rise and remote jobs decline, that lifestyle is becoming less attractive. There's not much of a local job base, and with a median household income of just $55,000, the new cost of homeownership, often topping $2,400 per month with taxes and insurance, is pushing many families to the brink. Inventory in Deltona has ballooned, up 41% year over year, and price cuts are common. More than 45% of active listings have already been reduced. The once tight market is now flooded with homes that simply aren't moving. Foreclosure filings have also ticked up 19% since 2024, and some new subdivisions are facing rising vacancy rates. Insurance premiums are another headache. While Deltona isn't coastal, Florida's statewide insurance crisis has hit everywhere. Average annual premiums now top $5,500, and that's crushing for lower-income households. Some buyers are backing out during escrow once they see the true cost of ownership. Investor interest, which once drove much of the demand here, is now waning. Short-term rentals aren't as profitable, and rents have plateaued. That's prompting landlords to sell, adding even more supply to a market already saturated. Deltona may not have the glitz of Miami or the job base of Tampa, but its housing market is showing signs of serious instability. If interest rates stay high and the local economy doesn't pick up, Deltona could go from a quiet success story to a painful collapse no one saw coming. Number 3. New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans has always danced to its own rhythm, jazzy, soulful, and resilient. But in 2025, the city's housing market is struggling to keep the beat. After a brief post-pandemic real estate boom, the market is now slowing fast, and cracks are beginning to show. The median home price in New Orleans rose from $230,000 in 2020 to around $320,000 by late 2023, a 39% increase. But now, prices have started dipping, listings are sitting longer, and buyer demand has dried up faster than a Mardi Gras daiquiri on Bourbon Street. One major issue? Insurance. Homeowners in New Orleans are facing skyrocketing premiums due to climate risks. Flood insurance alone can run upwards of $3,000 to $5,000 per year, and combined with regular homeowners coverage, total costs can hit $9,000 or more annually. That's pricing out working-class residents, especially in neighborhoods like Gentilly and New Orleans East, where incomes average around $45,000. And when insurance becomes unaffordable, so does the house. The city's aging infrastructure adds more stress. Sewer and water systems are fragile, roads are pocked with potholes, and power outages are common during storms. Add in a high property tax burden, and you get a perfect recipe for housing instability. Many homeowners are opting to sell, but there aren't enough buyers, especially with interest rates over 6.8%. The average mortgage payment on a modest home now exceeds $2,200, which eats up more than 50% of the average household's income. New Orleans also faces population stagnation. The city still hasn't fully recovered from post-Katrina migration losses, and now younger generations are leaving again, looking for jobs, safety, and affordability elsewhere. Meanwhile, crime rates in some districts have spooked potential buyers, and job growth remains sluggish in the tourism-dependent economy. Foreclosure rates in New Orleans have risen 24% compared to last year, and the city is among those flagged for potential value corrections in 2025. Without serious economic stimulus or insurance reform, the Big Easy could become a big housing bust. This cultural gem still shines brightly, but beneath the surface, New Orleans is a city at serious risk of housing collapse if the pressures keep mounting. Number 2. Denver, Colorado. Denver's housing market once looked unstoppable, fast-growing, tech-savvy, and outdoorsy. But in 2025, this Rocky Mountain hotspot is tumbling down the slope. Home prices in Denver soared from around $390,000 in 2019 to a peak of $620,000 in 2022, a jaw-dropping 59% increase. But that mountain is now crumbling. The median home price has since dropped to about $580,000, and many analysts predict another 10 to 15% decline by 2026 if current trends continue. Inventory in Denver has surged 36% year over year, and sellers are slashing prices left and right. Over 50% of homes listed in spring 2025 had at least one price reduction. With mortgage rates floating around 6.7%, many buyers have simply bowed out. The average monthly mortgage payment on a median-priced home has ballooned past $3,800, yet Denver's median household income is only about $85,000, which makes buying feel more like a luxury than a life step. Denver's job market is solid but slowing. Tech layoffs, especially in Boulder and downtown Denver, are hitting younger professionals hard. Companies like Meta, Amazon, and local startups have trimmed staff, and many remote workers who once flocked to Denver are moving to more affordable states. Meanwhile, rents have flattened, which has landlords reconsidering their portfolios. Institutional investors, who once snatched up homes at scale, are starting to offload properties, adding more listings to an already crowded market. Rental vacancy rates have increased to 6.5%, the highest in nearly a decade. Another growing concern is urban livability. Rising homelessness, traffic congestion, and high taxes are making some neighborhoods less appealing. At the same time, new construction continues to flood the market. Thousands of apartments and single-family homes are being completed, adding even more pressure to an oversupplied market. Foreclosures in the Denver metro area have spiked by 21% since 2024, particularly among first-time buyers who stretched too far during the peak frenzy. Denver may still have breathtaking views and an enviable lifestyle, but the housing market? It's headed downhill fast, and the brakes are failing. Number 1. Cape Coral, Florida. Cape Coral was once one of the brightest stars in Florida's real estate sky. Waterfront living, spacious lots, and no state income tax made it incredibly appealing during the post-2020 migration surge. Home prices soared from around $240,000 in 2019 to a wild peak of $430,000 in early 2022, a staggering 79% increase. But in 2025, Cape Coral is flashing every warning sign of a housing collapse, and the numbers are sobering. Inventory is exploding, up 48% year over year, and homes are sitting on the market for months. Nearly 52% of active listings have had at least one price cut. The median home price has already dipped to around $390,000, and many experts predict a further 15 to 20% decline by the end of 2025. Why? Because Cape Coral is overbuilt, overexposed to climate risks, and simply overpriced for local income levels. Let's talk about insurance. Because Cape Coral is in the hurricane danger zone, premiums are through the roof, with many homeowners now paying $7,000 to $10,000 per year just to insure a modest house. Combined with high HOA fees in many developments, monthly housing costs are crushing. For a typical family earning the median income of around $61,000, mortgage and insurance costs alone can devour more than 60% of their income. The job market is another issue. Cape Coral is heavily reliant on construction, real estate, and tourism, three sectors extremely sensitive to economic downturns. As building slows and tourism softens, local employment opportunities are drying up. Unemployment ticked up to 5.6% in early 2025, and layoffs in construction are rising. Foreclosures are climbing fast, up 29% from last year, as buyers who stretched too thin during the buying frenzy are now underwater on their loans. Some neighborhoods are already seeing "for sale" signs multiply like mushrooms after rain. Cape Coral's housing market is in free-fall mode. Without a dramatic turnaround in interest rates or insurance reforms, this once booming paradise might be facing one of Florida's most dramatic housing busts since 2008.